So the question was that why we have to marry. And okay. Number one, I'm the last person from whom you should ask this question. I'm not married. So how can I be good enough to answer? But, a doctor doesn't have to have cancer to talk about cancer. Right? So a doctor doesn't have a cancer, but is treating cancer, is talking about cancer. So in that way, I have all the authority to talk about marriage. Marriage is like a union, well, people love to say, union of, can somebody, souls. It is always said, marriage is union of, this is a lie. Let me say it. This is a big, thick lie. This is the biggest deception which the society has created. It is not true at all. Sometimes they say the marriages are made in... it's a lie. A married man died, and on arriving the Bible and Puranas, they are talking about the pearly gates from where you will enter and you will be sent into hell or heaven. So he reaches the gates, and the gateman, the angel, asked the question. He said, "You are coming from?" He said, "Earth." And then the question was, "What were you doing in the earth?" He said, "Well, I was married." And before he could say anything, there was somebody from the back office whispering. And he said, "Send it to heaven, send him to heaven, send him to heaven." He said, "But why?" He said, "He has already tasted a hell over there. Now no more hell. Send him to heaven." So I can give hundreds of such jokes and stories about it. So another thing which I really want you to understand is, and that is, marriages are also not made in heavens. Then some people say, God has set you with some individual, and one day that individual will arrive because God has made you the spouse, so soon you will find someone. This is lie number 3. God will not do these useless things. And if God is doing these kind of useless things, then I at least will not consider him God. God is not doing godly things then. So it's not God, it's not heaven. So then why, marriage? In nature, if we see, everything is in unison of 2 polarities, negative and positive. 2 polarities are working. We have a male and a female in animal world, in birds, in mammals, everywhere we see there's a male and there's a female. And if we observe, then in animal world, they have the periods where they will be giving that call. And that call is coming, why? Because their body is throwing those hormones which are giving them arousals. Hence, they will be looking for the opposite sex. The birds, they have 2 cycles in a year. Some animals have 3 cycles in a year. Some have 2 cycles in a year. So the nature gives them this change in the body, and the chemicals are oozing in their body, and so they are in, common word is they are in heat. The common word is that the dog is in heat, so the dog will look for a bitch. But if we see a human being, then a human being don't have this heat period coming to them, once a year or twice a year. In other words, I can say human beings are always on heat. because they are always looking for a partner. And if we go sociologically, if we go deep down into the history, then we can find that long ago there was no marriage. Any man would go with any woman would go with any man. But then a structure was created. A structure was created because it was creating a lot of confusions. In the early history of the humanity, the families were led by a woman, never by a man. Because she is going to get pregnant, she is going to bear children, she is going to take care of that. So man was like a visitor, coming and going. It was the woman who was the head. You will be very surprised to know, in East India, even now, a woman is head of the family, and she can marry as many times as she wants, but a man once married to this woman cannot marry again. In India, in certain parts, we still have this custom going on. And the best example in Puranas is of Draupadi, who had 5 husbands. And all 5 would get periodical times to stay with her for 1 year. She will stay with that man. And the other 4 brothers were not even allowed to be in that area where she is living with this one brother. But with the change of time, the concept of fatherhood gained more importance. And when the fatherhood importance came, then the woman had to take the back seat. Man, because was the provider, food, shelter. Now she is pregnant, or she is menstruating, or she is perimenopause, or she is in menopause. So she needed help, and somehow she got, cornered in her house or a cave or a cottage, or wherever she is living with her kids. Those were the times where there were no sanitary napkins. Please remember this. And those were the times where there were no tampons. Today, a woman who is menstruating can go for a swimming, no problem at all. She can do any kind of sports activity, no problem at all. But just go 100 years ago, she couldn't do this. She couldn't do this. So women slowly took the role of homemakers, and then man took the responsibility of being a provider. So man, body and mind has a lot of masculine energy. So he is a fighter, he is a go-getter, and basically he has most testosterone running in his blood. So he is so jumpy all the time. And woman, because of her estrogen, is more gentler, calmer, sweeter, rounder in the body. And mind-wise, her, if you see even now, a small girl baby and a small boy, they will behave in a very different way. Nobody teaches, but this girl will love to have a baby, a toy as a baby. And she was going to imitate her mom. The way mom puts her to bed, so she'll put her doll into the bed. Mom gives her food, she will give food to the toy, the Barbies, all these Barbies which are there. Now, man has this ability, what I would say, the sexual hunger is so much so that is kind of uncontrollable. So society felt the importance of binding a man with the woman. And that binding was marriage. Before you are not married, for a man, every woman is available. For a woman, every man is available. So when she goes out, even now, when a girl or a boy goes out to the market, or to that, what do you call? Ramlas. Huh? What will she do? Girl is looking for boys, boys are looking for girls. Because that is how the nature has designed them. See, the procreation could have been a very boring thing, hence the sex got the entertainment part into it. If the procreation would not have this, the sensuality or the pleasure part involved into that, maybe man or woman would be busy doing their jobs and they wouldn't have procreated at all. Like many women these days do not want to procreate. They see a child as a hassle. They are ready for surrogacy, they are ready for adoption, but they don't want to. They say, no, we don't want to be bound with the child. Now, a child is going to bring some restraint to both man and woman because they'll be jointly creating that baby. So society invented the system of marriage for a man who had been wandering after all these women and seeking and luring and trying to woo them, and because the sexual drive is very strong. And actually, same thing can be said for a woman also. She too can have a very strong sexual drive. And if there is no marriage actually, if I take it into a very, I would say, harsh word or true word, then it is a way to satisfy your sexual appetite. Otherwise, things would go very haywire. So before marriage, for a boy, every girl is available. But then our sages, our great intelligent people said, no, let him choose one. And then he was told that now you have to be with her. And she was told, now you have to be with him. So that their sexual wildness gets tamed. Second, we are not just sexual people. Human beings also have mind, and human beings are the one who created the society. And society means family. So to have a good, sane family, two set of parents are required. If the father figure or the father is going to give a go-getter attitude to the child, the mother's possibility, we can say, will give the nurturing attitude to the child, caring attitude to the child. Hence, the psychologists say that for a healthy child, it is very important that the child has influence of both men and women, meaning mother and father should be the part of this child's life for this child's growth to happen in a proper way. So initially, I would say that in India at least, in Bharat, this was the idea. Once you are married to a woman, then the man was said that now all other women are like your sisters. So the chances of raping your own sisters are how many? You tell me. And the woman was said that now this man is your husband. And you know what, it's a very complicated ceremony, especially the Hindu marriage. It's really complicated in a way because the whole society is sitting, whole set of relatives are sitting, and every time the Brahmin is going to say that she is your responsibility. And she will be told, he is your provider and responsibility. And you have to guide, her. But then even woman is said, now you have to guide him in certain times. So in this Hindu marriage, when they'll do these circles around the fire, how many times the man is ahead and woman is behind? 4 and 3. So you have to be the guide. The husband has to be guide of wife, and even wife has to be a guide of the husband. It's not just one-way traffic. And the father is saying to the girl that whatever times hard or good you have, now you have to be with your husband. So take care of him. In sickness and health. In the Christian marriages also they say, in your sickness and health, you are be in bad times and in good times, you have to be with one another and support one another. So marriage basically was a system designed by people. In every culture, in every race, in every country, we see they have a certain idea of a marriage. Their rites might be different, their ceremonies might be different. But one thing is very common, and that is being loyal to one another and not committing adultery. That was a very big point. Adultery is not acceptable. Yeah, I know these days they have concept of open marriage. Meaning we are together, but we will be seeing other people also. I know these marriages are also happening. But the intelligent people found this idea, and let me say, before this institution called marriage was there, it was like an open marriages. People were just, having, some days, some months with somebody, and then some months with somebody, and so on and so forth. But the biggest brunt is ended by the children. Whom will they call the father? Who is the father now? So this point became slowly so important, and the constant figure has to be there. Hence the mother and the father, they are wedded to one another, so they are loyal to one another, and child is seeing this love happening in between the mother and father. So child is learning so many things, like being loyal, not getting led with your mind all the times. The mind is like I would say, a greedy dog. Why I'm saying greedy dog? Because in Indian school education system, we always had this essay to write, and the stories of a greedy dog. A dog had a bread piece in his mouth. He is just roaming around, and he sees his reflection in water. And he thinks, oh, that's another dog who has a piece of bread, and I want this bread too. And he opens his mouth to bark and to snatch the reflected bread, and he loses his own bread also. So children used to write this essay, greedy dog. And I say, mind is actually the greedy dog. Wants this also, that also, this also, that also. So marriage was for bringing a discipline to your sexual behavior, to bring on system of family, to bring on a system of loyalty, and then companionship, and also in hard times you have a dependable friend with you.